Broadcast on, podium on. All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Stokes.
Here.
Councilmember Todd.
Here.
Councilmember Saper.
Here.
Councilmember Schneider.
Here.
Councilmember Smith. Not here. Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Here.
Fantastic. Thank you. This evening, the pledge will be led by Councilmember Alvarez. All right, thank you. Next item is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Councilmember Snyder's got
I just wanted to pull number 12 off of the
Okay.
consent agenda, please.
Perfect. All right, yep, we'll pull number. Get my pen so I remember to actually do that. Number 12, and we'll discuss that as the first item on the regular agenda. Further comments? Seeing none, was there a motion there, right?
Yeah, move to approve the modified agenda to not include number 12.
Perfect. Second. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item, comments from the public. Anyone from the public wishing to speak this evening, please step up to the microphone. Seeing none, we'll move on to discussion items. Number 6, Economic Development Incentive Policy Review and Discussion, which I believe is being led this evening by somebody. Kim, there you go. You're moving around, kicking Anthony out. Good evening.
Good evening. I did place a printed copy of this at your desk because we're going to be reviewing a lot of information and you may want to review it later for your discussionary purposes. So this particular item was requested by Councilmember Schneider. So I thought that I would kind of go over a brief history, kind of some what our policy currently says, where we are currently at on several of our incentive programs. We were asked to review several different complementary economic development incentives. So we have some, again, this is really just for discussion purposes. We kind of saw a theme, so you'll see some of what we saw in others for your consideration, as well as some possibilities that you may want to think about as you deliberate. So with that, what are economic development incentives? What they are, that's kind of a broad term for a lot of different financial tools and resources that are available to cities and counties via the state statutes. These incentives can be used to support recruitment and retention of businesses. And why that happens is the benefits that come with job creation and financial investment. A lot of times those businesses relocating or staying within your community can bring with you. How that is done, there are several different tools in the toolkit, but most often, at least at the city level, it is exemptions from certain tax liabilities. Whoop. So why does North Kansas City give economic development and tax incentives? There are 4. These are actually currently within our incentive policy, which was attached to this particular agenda. Number 1 is to promote and stimulate the development of economic growth in the city. Number 2 is to maintain an attractive community that creates a positive public image and encourages people and businesses to locate here in North Kansas City, as well as to encourage the use of incentives to maximize public benefit and promote development that would not otherwise occur. We also pretty much strictly use the economic incentive policy to fill in financial gaps that would make that project not viable without any kind of help or partnership. Why are they important? Why are policies important? Why are you guys chatting tonight? One of the things that you need to, as a burden of the governing body, is protection of taxpayer and taxing district interests. Good public policy requires municipalities to really kind of look. We'll talk about that but-for clause here in a bit. But another reason is tax abatement and redistribution, at least at the city level, may impact other taxing jurisdictions. So you really need to be mindful about and kind of really understand what your actions may do for others. So real quick, those of you that were in the Citizens Academy, this is a very familiar graphic to you. This is pretty much how, this is a property tax breakdown for North Kansas City. So by percentage, this is our current levy. It's not what the levy that will be enacted in 2024, but just so you can kind of visualize the percentages of what a property tax looks like when it comes to the homeowner or business owner. So we're going to talk about kind of some of the main ones, at least over the last 5 years, the city has used. Tax abatement, which means that it's frozen and that entity doesn't pay any new taxes. Those are chapters 353 and 100. I'm going to do broad overview. I'm not going to get into the technical stuff. Tax redirection, which is tax increment financing. You may know it as TIF. What that does is that actually rediverts or redistributes tax revenue that is collected. Pilots, which is payment in lieu of taxes, that is oftentimes associated with a Chapter 353, 100, or a TIF. And EATS, I always think that this is kind of a unique word, but it actually is economic activities taxes. It's the sales taxes generally collected within a TIF district. Just real quick, Chapter 353. This is a property tax abatement program. And it's pretty well defined within the state statute. However, you can adjust any of these at the local level. So by state statute, for the full term, it would be a 25-year program. And the first 10 years is 100%, and the remaining 15 is at 50%. We have 5 active projects within North Kansas City, and this is kind of a visualization of where those are located. I would like to note, however, that the large one that's over the former Cerner, now Oracle campus, will be returning to the tax rolls. That this Chapter 353 will be returning to the tax rolls in 2025. Chapter 100 is another program. It's a little bit different because it actually also abates sales tax for purchases of construction products. This one right here, it varies, and the cases within North Kansas City also vary. We kind of span anywhere between 5 and 25 years, and we have 11 of these projects located in North Kansas City. This right here is a map of where those are located. I would like to highlight that the one that is located over in the One North area is actually a blanket and it's sales tax only. However, the parcels that are activated have full Chapter 100s located on them. Tax increment financing, this is a little bit more of a complicated structure. It's a little bit more of a sophisticated program where it freezes the tax base, and then any of the increased tax as projects, let's say it had a flat grass on it and you built a hotel on it, all of the taxes that would be collected on that hotel are actually captured and redistributed depending on who you are partnering with that particular project. It also covers half of the sales taxes within that district. So most TIFs within Missouri capture all new property taxes created by that particular project, half of the sales tax, and it is authorized at 23 years. We have 2 TIFs here in North Kansas City. The Northgate TIF has 226 parcels, and the One North has 6 active with 5 more eligible for activation. The Northgate TIF is a pretty different style of TIF, however. It's mostly residential, has 100% tax redirection because the city owned the land. So when they froze that property, it was valued at nothing because the city owned it. We are the beneficiary, meaning that all of the revenues that are collected within that particular TIF actually come back to the city, and that is because the city, when that was developed, we actually used gaming revenue almost as an internal loan on that particular project, and those revenues are coming back as payment back to that initial investment. 50% of the sales taxes is redirected, and again, that the city is the beneficiary of that particular TIF. One North is a more traditional style TIF. It does have more residential than anticipated. It does feature 100% tax redirection, again, because the city owned the property. However, the developer is the beneficiary of the revenue to pay for the initial capital. 50% of the sales tax redirection, and that particular development features 100% of the hotel-motel tax goes to the developer to, again, repay for those initial investments. This is a visualization of what the TIF districts look like in North Kansas City, and this is everything laid on top of itself. So this is kind of what stands now. We have some that roll off next year, and some of them that won't roll off to 2036, some of them to 2045. So
Yes,
just
I was going to ask the
Yes.
353.
the
So that,
three.
that's now removed, right? The Cerner campus 353.
It will be removed. It will be restored to the tax rolls in 2025. That is something that has been recently done.
Perfect. Okay.
Yes. So it is here because in this moment where we stand, it's still active.
Got it. No, I just wanted to bring that up.
Absolutely.
It might be a topic of discussion
Absolutely.
at some point later as you, and I don't know if that's to be
Yep.
addressed in here, but as you talk about
Yeah.
clawbacks and how we draw contracts really.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The policy was adopted, actually, the city didn't have a formal policy previous to 2018. It was amended in 18 to narrow the CID definition, and it was narrowed again about this time last year. Current thresholds are a minimum of $3 million investment, acquisition fees, meaning that the land purchase does not count toward that investment. We have a but-for clause, which means that without this investment, that project would not happen. And the public cannot contribute 33% of the project goal. Another thing is that the city will not issue the debt or be bound by the debt for the private development. Currently, and this is something that happened in 2022 with that particular amendment, Chapter 353 is a 15-year maximum, 50% for 10, 25 for 5. That carries over to Chapter 100s as well. The TIF has no local limits. And again, so we actually read through quite a few different policies from both the metro area and kind of around the United States. And some of the trends that we saw was, and just for your consideration, would be to lower the not to exceed limit from 33% down to 20, meaning that the public investment wouldn't be more than 20% of the initial project. Raising the minimum investment from $3 million to $5 million. But one of the caveats that we found that we kind of liked was having a differential between existing businesses and new businesses, meaning that new businesses, you would have to make a minimum of $5 million investment. However, if you are here and reinvesting, then that dollar value will be lowered to $3 million. Lowering the time horizons from 15 years to 10. Again, as we were reviewing a lot of these policies, we were seeing that that is becoming a trend point. Creating a matrix, and I have a visualization of what that would look like to actually create some differential between minimum and most favorable abatement. Right now, we have a most favorable clause in our policy, but there's really no kind of definition of what's the difference between you meet the requirements and your most preferred. So we'll get into that here in just one second. But one of the things that you could do by narrowing your policy is actually build out some clauses to incentivize items that the council would actually really like. A lot of your priorities, things that we've heard you talk about, affordable housing, and some of the items that are in your strategic plan, this would be a great way to incentivize your goals within this plan. Another one that we saw was requiring the approval of the incentives from the school district. Again, these are just for consideration. These were things that we found in other people's policies. So for North Kansas City specifically, one of the things that we had kind of at the staff level and talking with a few people is to actually separate residential and commercial. And the reason being is residential developments require more long-term resources from cities, counties, and school districts. And you may have different goals for residential versus commercial properties versus oftentimes what we have heard is multifamily. We would like to provide Link City. We would like those new residents to have access to that city investment. This would be a way to put that in and incentivize that. Another one would be affordable housing. For commercial developments, right now our current policy doesn't envision job minimums, meaning how many jobs and what is the wage of those jobs. So that may be something that you would want to kind of consider as for your future conversation here. So this is just a real quick visualization. Again, big sample here. So here's would be meets qualifications, and these would be meets qualifications and is more favorable. And some commercial would be, you know, if you are creating anywhere between 10 and 25 new jobs with the average wage at least 80% of the county wage average, we pulled that language from some of the state programs that are much bigger and a little bit harder to achieve. However, this 80% of your county wage seems to be a good threshold point for your consideration. And if you create more jobs, 26 plus, then you would bump up into a category. So something like this, again, I'm just trying to visualize for your consideration and thought process. Some of the things that in your strategic plan, and as we have talked about, is stormwater. Right now, a lot of our projects use APWA, the very minimum amount of stormwater abatement on that property that they need to achieve. Well, what would happen if we incentivize them going beyond that minimum threshold to actually help us better manage stormwater throughout our entire city? So why you would do that? Well, perhaps if everybody started to kind of help with stormwater abatement on their own projects, we may not need to use as much public investment into the network overall. So that would be kind of some consideration points as you deliberate. Another thing that we've heard is heat island. Right now, most of our projects, the bare minimum of landscaping is kind of what we are seeing as we are accepting applications. Well, what would happen if you went beyond that to help meet some of the city council's strategic goals, as well as shared parking agreements, as opposed to everybody having their own lot? Can there be some kind of agreement that we share these lots? Affordable housing is definitely something that we have heard from the city council as a priority that you'd like to discuss. Perhaps two different requirements, new build and reinvestment. New build, that's more of a reactive model, meaning that somebody is coming to the city and proposing new houses. We have absolutely nothing in our toolkit to be proactive about preserving our current affordable housing. One of the things, the big takeaways that we learned during the NLC pilot program that North Kansas City was part of several years ago is one of the most effective strategies for actually having affordable housing in your community is to preserve the affordable housing you have. That was the genesis of your home repair and modification program that was adopted by the city 2 years ago. We do have a lot of legacy apartment buildings that we would like to see perhaps a conversation of reinvesting within, but partnering with them to keep that affordable. So something like this, again, we are throwing a bunch of ideas onto you tonight for your discussions, but I had a meeting this afternoon about a land bank, about the establishment of a regional-wide land bank for funding for projects kind of like this. So should the city council kind of think, hey guys, this is something we would like you as staff to go through and really tease down and bring back some ideas from us. I just want you to know there are larger conversations to try to leverage large grants for programs such as this. Other considerations, again, this is kind of beyond the policy. However, it's all within the big scope of community development, large plan. What would you like this community to look like? What are your priorities? How do we get our priorities into other people's projects? Some of those things are considering the impact of a project on public investment. What do those connections look like? This city does not have what is traditionally known as impact fees, meaning because of your project, we are now having to upgrade all the traffic signals around this area. What is the upgrades to the water and stormwater and wastewater going to need to be, because now we have a whole bunch of people in this area that we didn't have before. Creation or dedication of new public spaces. As we are rebuilding, especially with some of the residential that is popping up in different areas, how are we creating beautiful, welcoming spaces for those new residents and visitors to enjoy some green space? Again, other cities kind of contemplate this. It's not in their economic development policy. It's beyond the policy. However, you kind of want to think of things holistically as they snap together. What are our public transportation needs? This is something that the governing body is discussing right now. What are small business support within our incentives? Think affordable housing, but for businesses. Kind of the same thought process of how are we encouraging and ensuring that our local-owned businesses still have a place here in North Kansas City if a new development comes around. I did touch on land bank and housing trusts. We met with LISC and we met with several other housing trusts companies. They are kind of working in this space right now. They are currently visiting with a lot of other cities. Kind of our hope is to maybe have some kind of presentation that can come around to cities in the next couple of months. This is all I've got. I know I've thrown a lot at you very fast. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't bogarting the conversation and allowing you guys to be able to have kind of a more informed conversation.
All right. So we'll kick this off. Obviously, I don't think we're going to come out with some sort of flushed out word-for-word policy here this evening, but definitely want to get feedback from council. And we'll kick this off with Councilmember Snyder here.
Well done. This is several meetings in the making of her putting this together so everybody kind of gets a background of where we are so we can talk about where we want to go. So currently, our economic development plan that we have incentivizes when you spend a lot of money, the more money you have, then we help incentivize that without any real goals in mind for how we want the city to be developed. So the conversation that I wanted to start is, when people are asking for incentives, when they're asking for those tax breaks that we've all signed off on multiple times, what is it that we want as a hierarchy of, yes, but if you do this, we're willing to give you that? Kind of something that we can fall back on that says, you know what, this project is really important to us because we're focused on whatever we determine that is. But I would suggest that we do go back to our strategic plan. The sustainability, the stormwater that we know, that was one of Kim's ideas, which I thought was brilliant. If you go above and beyond the minimum requirements, then yes, we're going to help you fund this project because it helps the city. It helps the city grow in a healthy way. So that's the conversation that I wanted to kickstart so that we could rework this or give direction, actually, for the experts to rework it in a way that helps our city grow responsibly. So what's important to you guys?
Further, Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, I would agree. And great job listing suggestions. I was honestly nervous, like, oh no, we got to think of everything else top of our head. Hopefully they come to it. But stormwater is a huge piece. You know, I mean, walking into this and thinking even about the 2030 commitment, that's like zero net neutrality, you know, for new buildings and things like that. We've not required that in our city at all. And so we became the city that's like, yeah, let's just go ahead and keep building whatever we can because we've not modified it. So thank you, Councilmember Schneider, for bringing this forward and city staff for working through these. I definitely am all on board for, you know, kind of a tiered system in a way. If you want to have some sort of incentive, then you need to meet, you know, our basic requirements for where we're headed, where we're going. I started to think, like, do we require, you know, a landscape architect to be at the first of the project, but that doesn't seem to be enough. You know, requiring specific solutions around stormwater, I think, would be minimum of our requirement for getting any incentive. I wouldn't even want to put like a minimum. I would say anything going forward has to have that, or there's zero incentive at all. And I would almost venture to say, like, why would we really want them to come if there's no effort in making some sort of stormwater solution out of their project? I'll stop talking and keep reviewing some of these things.
All right, what else we got? Councilmember Todd.
Yes, first, Kim, I'm so glad we have you because I feel like you have such a gift of taking these big picture ideas and these things that we all complain about and think about and actually putting it into practical terms, and that makes it so much easier for me to understand. So thank you. Definitely loved the idea of, yes, incentivizing the above and beyond for stormwater. I love that, and I love that there is that, just as you said, kind of a give and take. Like, yes, let's work together to make the city better. A huge thing on my personal agenda would absolutely be something with affordable housing as well. I love that you also made the statement about preserving the affordable housing that we have. That's something, again, I wouldn't have even thought of or even known to think of without you making that suggestion about like a practical way to just keep what we have, because I do think that that's something that has potential to go away. So that would absolutely be on one of my top priorities. And then also the tiered system of incentivizing some sort of, I loved what you said about the jobs and the wages of jobs. I would love to know what that 80%, I guess, of the Clay County wage is, to know what that is, but I loved that idea as well. So those would be the things I guess, on the top of my list.
I'm certainly going to need a lot more time to digest a lot of these thoughts, but as I quickly look at it, and we've kind of had this discussion before, you take an idea, this is one idea is $3 million for established, $5 million for new. It really seems to kind of set a goal of like you're always chasing something larger, and there's only so much of that larger stuff. Where it seems like one intent for us is we already have a lot of great businesses in North Kansas City. So, did I flip that $5 million for new, $3 million for established? Yeah, so make sure we're keeping that floor low for established. It has to make sense at some point, but making sure we're definitely focusing on growing from within as well. Like, how do you create that next Cerner? How do you create that next large business? I mean, we have a lot that could be there, and so make sure all these numbers and all this stuff ties back to that. But also, as we look at this, I think we need to take a look at the reality of actual proposals and see how some of these policies do look in reality, because obviously the goal is not to dry up investment. The goal is not to drive out investment by driving up costs. So we do have to make sure we're balancing all of that as well and make sure that while some of this probably is great in theory, it doesn't always work in reality. Further comments? Councilmember Snyder.
I was just going to say again, which you both have touched on. I mean, I was part of helping to develop this, so I like all the ideas that are in here.
Yeah.
But the redevelopment, why I think that's so important to incentivize is because that's how we keep what we have still looking nice and
Yeah.
being livable, and we don't have to tear it down and replace it with something else. I think that's a really important piece. Also, something that was in the very beginning, so it may have squeezed through, is squeezing that timeline and decreasing the percentage of the product that we're feeding into, the percentage cost of the entire project, which I think also, as far as squeezing the years, when you think about it, our oldest project's coming up in 2034 or something. We have some things that are off the tax books for so many years, it's covering 2 generations of kids going to school. And those are taxes that aren't going to the schools. So squeezing that timeline down, I think, is also an important piece, and we're not on an island doing that. So we looked, like she said, we looked at lots of policies, both locally, out a little bit from Kansas City within the 4-state area, and then nationally. So that's a trend that's happening.
And I'll just say, in generally about our policy, what I appreciate is last year council lowered the ceiling, but in the end, council discretion still applies. This isn't some hard set policy on all of it. So it does create more of a conversation. And so just to kind of throw that out there in general, I think the idea behind a lot of this is to create more of this conversation, have more of that conversation, bring people to the table, and start checking those boxes for our priorities. Something over here.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes, we'll keep
I was just
going.
going to
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
it's
please,
not going to
Councilmember Snyder.
stop any projects either. This is just for.
Yeah, correct.
For when people are asking to be incentivized. These aren't new rules for every build.
Yes.
This is just when things are incentivized.
So what would, further comments? Councilmember Fitch, oh. Is that you? Oh, there. I'll let you
Okay.
there.
Yeah, I'm almost changing the subject a little bit just to add my 2 cents on areas I'm interested in. Obviously, a lot of info here to digest numbers-wise. I need some more time for it, but I do like the idea of separating out the residential versus commercial incentive policies. I think you're going to end up with vastly different goals on those types of projects. So setting up the incentives to match those goals, between the two might be helpful.
Further, and that's what tonight's for. That's perfect. You keep adding things, and we'll keep bringing this into more cohesive policy here eventually. Councilmember Saper.
Underlying a lot
Oh.
of this is that this city is a lot stronger in many, many ways than it was a decade ago, when some of these projects still underway and have just recently been completed were brought forward. At that time, we were in some ways a beggar city, wanting people to come here, and we didn't look at all these various aspects of what we could demand of them and require of them to get these various incentives. That's changed. Now we can consider all of these various avenues, and no one project is going to meet all of them. But this would be sort of a standard that we look at for any project that comes forward. We can do that now, and times have changed. Let's do it.
All right, I'm calling on Councilmember Clark this time. Sorry, I skipped you.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate, like, I'm not really anti anything you've listed, in the box here, if that's helpful. And like I said, if it comes on a tier system, and to reiterate again, that it's based on someone asking for, assistance. It's not just for anybody coming to town wanting to build. What was the other piece? Oh, I was just thinking, with the affordable housing, and I think it's in here, but just like making sure that a certain percentage of sort of a big juggernaut development of apartments does include, affordable housing sprinkled in there, because that's definitely a commonality across most cities, no matter the size. And I think that's what makes us who we are. But that's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith.
So I came in a little late. If you could take this one from the top and try, and we'll run it back.
We started with 19 minutes of conversation. You can just go on back out of here.
No, yeah, there you go. I kid.
Watch it on YouTube later.
We've done a number of these talks about the economic development policy during my time on council, and this looks like a very, very well put together presentation. I'll take a little bit of a contrarian point of view to what's been talked about here. I love this council's heart to look out for environmental things, for affordable housing. And what Councilmember Saper said is true. We're a lot stronger city than we were a decade ago. Part of that has to do with how we've incentivized projects going into North Kansas City to create what we have now. And so a lot of that is driven off this economic development policy, and some of what we've even made exceptions to go bigger. And now we are punching above our weight, so to speak, and we can start taking a more focused look on what we're offering. But we have to recognize we don't operate in a vacuum. So we don't operate on our island, and if we are being more constrictive than surrounding cities and surrounding areas, projects are going to look elsewhere. So if we put things in writing that are a little too restrictive, and I think we should just keep an eye on that as we go forward, projects will look elsewhere. But I do like the idea of, especially the green initiatives, that's stuff that we just can't look away from anymore. I would be curious, the piece about affordable housing that talks about reinvesting in existing stock, I would be interested to see some studies and data on that. I'm sure you have it. I just know that when you start renovating really old housing stock, it can get very expensive, and then you just don't get the same marginal benefit you do of a new build. It doesn't have the same, it doesn't feel as good to just knock over a bunch of housing and then build something new, but often those products last and endure. They're built with better materials. So if we're going to look into affordable housing, I'd like to see some of that fleshed out a little better.
Yeah, and generally, I'd agree with the kind of the direction you're going there. And I've at least talked with staff kind of about this. I've kicked around a lot of different ideas in this realm, and I've been all over the place on it. First started looking at how do you score these things? Scorecard. I've kind of come around to the realization it may just work best if you ask people to address these things in some sort of way. How would you include this in your proposal and leave it up to council to decide on a project by project? Because ultimately, nothing gets automatically approved here. It all comes back to council. But if they're addressing stormwater in some sort of way, addressing heat island effect in some sort of way, if it's residential, addressing housing in some sort of way, and kind of ask them to address that. Go ahead, Councilmember Snyder.
I don't want to cut you off. I'm
No,
just going
no.
to add, just because I've spent a lot of time
Yeah.
reading this to prepare for it. So something I think that we should also think about is it's not a hard and fast rule. It's
Yeah.
not a check these 5 boxes and then you get
Yeah.
the thing. It's all the incentive policies that I read say something to the effect of it is favorable if we see these things, or these
Yeah.
are things that we're focusing on, and it is more favorable if you hit these things. You're not going to hit all of them. So you're not going to have an apartment complex being built that goes above and beyond in all of these areas because it probably would get too pricey. But if you're building in an area that has no green space, and you go above and beyond in creating green space when you create your new building and surrounding areas, then if we have something like this, we can say, you know what, we take that. That's one of the things that we want to see. So we look at that favorably, and that's something that's going to give you high marks when we're considering. But it's not a check these 3 things and then you get it. It's just, this is what we're looking at, and it gives us up here and the city staff something to fall back on to keep us focused on what are our goals, what do we want to incentivize, Because up to this point, it's just, wow, you're spending a lot of money. Yes, let me help you with that. And it's none of the pieces of what we want to see going forward.
Perfect. Further, Councilmember Saper.
Yeah, I agree. We don't need to have a checkbox that they have to go through. But we can present them a list of these things.
Yeah, that's.
And say, this is what we will be looking at. These are the various factors will be included in our evaluation. Okay, come back to us with your proposal.
All right, I think we're good. Okay, you got everything you need? No, I'm kidding. What else we got? What else we got? This is the idea for, or the room for ideas and brainstorming. Anything else? Nope, we good. All right, so you want to round up a few of the comments tonight and bring this back at some point.
Yeah, we see this as kind of an ongoing
Yeah,
conversation until we kind of get it to a place where we can codify it.
And I wrote notes all over the place, so I'm just going through here. I've said all I got to say for this one for now. Perfect, thank you. We will move on to the next item, which is item number 7, Public Transportation Services RP Committee update. And for everyone watching for this item, you're going to be, I skipped an item. Did I skip an item? Oh, now I'm on the right item. Number 7. Very disappointed in the comments tonight in that we have received the proposals and we're still actively reviewing the proposals. And we'll have an updated timeline, likely, for everyone by the end of the week, or possibly early next week at the latest, I would say, on an updated timeline, unless Kim has something else additional to add to that. So proposal received, proposals reviewed, not complete on review process yet, I would say, and more to come. Councilmember Clark.
Sorry, did we miss public comment?
No, we did that. No one spoke this evening.
Okay. Just,
It threw me
no,
off too.
Just wasn't sure.
Liz is happy.
Yeah, we're having a moment up here like, wait, what day is it?
Yeah. All right, there we go. Next item, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
I had already pulled.
Is there a motion to
12.
approve the amended consent agenda? There we
Move
go.
to approve the amended consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item will be the item pulled from the agenda, which is number 12, Memorandum of Understanding for Emergency Overnight Sheltering Service, Northland Assistance Center, Resolution number 23082. We had talked about this one before. I think everyone's fairly familiar with what we are discussing tonight, but Councilmember Snyder has something for this item as well, so I will kick it off with you,
I do.
please.
I pulled this item because I would like to discuss amending it to include cold weather emergency housing only. I have an amended, I have the amended paperwork because I do think that it is important for us to pass it tonight, one way or another. So I'm going to pass this out so you can look at it while I talk. One of the things that that I mentioned but didn't go into great detail about previously was how we came to emergency cold weather to begin with, which was a pretty lengthy process. And I asked Chief Hargis if he would be willing to speak on it, and we can go to that if we want to. But ultimately, my consideration here is I don't know that we should use emergency housing funded by the city in all aspects. And why I'm saying that is because it was a very, very well thought out plan to do this for cold weather for specific reasons. So I guess we should just go ahead and do it. Chief Hargis, do you mind going through? I know first we had an emergency shelter that we were talking about doing it at the Y, and we ended up doing it at the police station. We had one guy that used it that year. Do you remember that year? The first year, yeah, that one guy. And we started there before we ended up going this route. But there are a lot of safeguards in place so that we try all other things first. So go ahead, Chief, sorry.
Oh,
Well, after that first year, the council at that time asked me to put together a plan because they had looked at wanting to do some type of shelter here. And it's just, we came to the conclusion we don't have the facilities nor the properly trained staff to do that. So I was working with the Kansas City Coalition for the homeless at that time. We put together this, it pretty much mirrored what Kansas City had at the time. And it's kind of still that way, that we make an attempt to get people into the local shelters first. However, the issues are we don't have any shelters north of the river. The shelters south of the river fill up quick. There's certain times that people can be admitted into those shelters. There's certain parameters. So we came up with a backdrop to use the Northland Assistance Center as the city providing them funds to shelter the people overnight. And basically, that's kind of what Kansas City has went to now, is they're providing nonprofits. I think this year was 1.1 or $1.4 million to help alleviate this issue. So that's kind of the quick and dirty of how we came up to what we have now.
All right. Oh, sorry.
Our goal was so that nobody would die over the winter. And we still feel I feel very passionately about that. And I know that there are other instances where people may need emergency shelter, but I don't think that that's necessarily the place of the city to be funding emergency shelter for all the various reasons. And one of the reasons that I feel very strongly about that is because we put money towards this and very quickly needed to put more money towards this. And as we continue to put more money where it is needed to make decisions, sound decisions, we need to know where it's going, because we could inadvertently be spending money on emergency housing for a situation that something else could come in and fix in a better way, in a more permanent way, in a more proactive way. So there was a lot of thought that went into funding emergency housing for cold weather, and I would like the funding to stick there. And if we'd like to discuss emergency funding for other situations, bring that up at a later date.
All right, council discussion on this item. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I like that. You're right, it was a very narrow focus when we set it up. Remind me, we also, through the Harrah's Charitable and some other means, do we have other funds that we give to NAC, and do we know how much?
I think it varies from year to year.
It does, but,
Do we remember
I
how
don't remember
much?
but we always give the Harris,
Yeah, it's always whatever has been asked, I think. Even some years we've juiced it up even higher. Yeah, so this one, the things I would note on here, so this is for fiscal year ending September 30th of '24. If we're limiting to cold weather, do we want to limit it to months when it's actually cold?
No.
If we're going to run it around to September 30th of next year?
The actual cold weather program goes from November 1st to March 31st.
Do we want to just tie the MOU to that? And so like here on item D,
Oops.
it goes through September 30th of '24. We want to, what was that date, end date, or tie it to that?
Make it April 1st to be lazy here.
Yeah, no, it was November 1st through March 31st. If we could make those dates an amendment.
Is that in the resolution?
It's on the MOU, and that's referenced in the resolution.
Try to set this up so we wouldn't.
Yeah, I know. You tried.
So close.
But it does say, it references the MOU within the resolution.
Yeah.
So it seems like it would
I know that. Yeah.
need
But
to
it's
be.
not referenced in the resolution on a date. I don't see that. So I don't see a problem there. Okay.
Okay.
MOU, is there only one reference to the date?
Item D.
Is effective from November, so it'd be what would be new 11 would be 1. And then item D. All right, Tom, eventually you're going to be editing this here. You got these date changes, just 2 date changes as well? Obviously, it's switching out September 30th, references to September 30th, which I believe there are 2 for March. Would you say 31st? What's the last day in March?
March, yeah, 31st, I think.
Last day of March. How about that?
Where's the second reference to September?
On what would be new item 11, item 13, the very end of the.
Oh, it's on the
MOU.
back side. Gotcha. Yep.
Until the funds are exhausted, whichever comes first. So that's how it ends. But November 8th through September 30th.
Yep.
So I see 2 references to September 30th. Also, number 7 on the back side,
Yeah.
as Connor pointed out for me. So how about this? All references to September 30th be switched to March 31st.
Control F,
2024.
replace.
We'll make that part of a motion here if we are going to proceed with this route.
Okay, very good. Second question is the 5% admin fee. Is that for funds dispersed, or is it just for on the 30? Does anybody know?
I feel like we've asked this every year. I don't remember.
Yeah,
You mean is the 5% included in the total here, right? So in essence, it's whatever 30,000 minus the 5% is.
but it's yeah. So
Is what we're actually
It's
contributing
funds
to this.
expended.
Yeah, as it gets expended, yeah. I guess I
Okay.
went.
I didn't see that written somewhere specifically. It was just in the memo on the item.
Considering services NAC, the city shall pay NAC an amount equivalent to 5% of the hotel room for the individual house through the emergency sheltering program. Item 7, new item 5 on the back page of.
Right here.
Yeah,
Hotel room.
that addresses the 5%.
Okay, so 5% per placement.
Yeah, or 5% of the 5% of the hotel room for the individual house of the emergency sheltering program. Oh, the amount equivalent to the 5% of the hotel room. Yeah, I think that addresses
Yeah, that's
what
fine.
is the fee. Further, was that?
That's it.
All right, Councilmember Todd, Councilmember Clark.
Yes, I just wanted to say, so, and I know Rita had to step out, so she might not be able to answer this question tonight, I guess. But my understanding was that other than cold weather, those people were only taken care of if there was no other option and it was a request by our own city police department, fire department to her. Can you all confirm that?
I guess that'd be for public safety. Do you often call Northland Assistance Center for placements? I mean, I don't know what all else.
We have used Northland Assistance Center for shelter and services outside and prior to this agreement. At that time, there was funding for that. I don't know if Northland Assistance Center still has funding outside of this agreement for those purposes. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And so that would be my only, I guess, concern about amending this, is that we do have, our city is relying on Northland Assistance Center to house people outside of just cold weather. And so I hear what you're saying too, that we should set aside, this was a very specific purpose and we should set that aside. And I would be on board with that as long as we also are considering, I guess, also funding when there are those special circumstances where our own city is asking Northland Assistance Center to house people for reasons outside of that, that they still would be able to do that because our city is relying on them for that purpose outside of cold weather sometimes. The reason they ask for this is because obviously it is hard with all the red tape of small nonprofit organizations and then all of the meetings in between to try and get things approved. It is just kind of a red tape thing, and I think sometimes that can get in the way of someone being able to get a service. And I know that even when services and resources are available, they're not always accessible because of things like this. And so I just want to put that out there again as like if our city is using Northland Assistance Center, I do think that we need to support that in some way.
Councilmember Clark.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that we were ever supporting a housing initiative that we funded from the city funds, aside from the cold weather.
No, prior to initiating this, we didn't have any other program, correct?
That's correct. The funding that Northland Assistance Center used prior to this was just separate funding that they had as Northland Assistance Center, which they still could apply for and still get. And I'd be clear after Ms. Pierce's comments after the last meeting, I wanted to make sure that we were using that as a last effort and that we exhausted all other resources before we engaged them with help, which I'm not so sure that we weren't doing.
Okay, yeah. I think that's the thing to keep in mind is, because this could just start to climb and climb and climb. And I think that's what we're trying to go, whoa, because it does also support a local business. I mean, like it or not, it's great that they're open to that, but the city funds are going toward a specific hotel for stay. And I think we were into the life or death moment of saying, because we all could have many, many things that could occur, and I get that. And I think, and I am so grateful to Rita for the purpose she serves and who she is in our community. But I think for this purpose, I still want to support just the cold weather initiative so that we know that that's absolutely, and that we're following those steps to say this is the last resort, kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, because I'm not against supporting all the people, but I think she did maybe do more fundraising on her own for the Assistance Center for those purposes in the past. And so, and open the doors for emergency services to reach out to her for that purpose. And then this was developed very specifically as a reaction, so.
I would just add on top of that, I would certainly encourage the organization to also apply through the Harris Charitable Foundation for maybe something like this as well, which I don't know, not everyone's been through that. Most everyone has at this point now. But we have the money that we allocate every year, the $100,000 from Harris to different charities and everything as well. Councilmember Todd.
Yeah, I just have a question to clarify, because when Ms. Pierce was here last, from my understanding at least, last year, she was allowed to use some of the funds from the city for that purpose.
So what occurred is she had additional leftover funds, and rather than
Right.
transferring dollars back and forth, which I think it was under a couple $1,000s, maybe, yeah, it was around $2,000.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a small amount of funds rather than kind of push around paper and do everything.
Right.
We did just say,
Like, use it for what you need.
yes, if I were to
Yes.
simplify a larger
Yes.
conversation.
And so I think that then, in a sense, set a precedence for the organization to say, you have allowed this in the past, we plan to use it in the same way. And so I think it's I think we need to do one of two things. We either then say, yes, but you need to track it like we talked about so we can see if this is truly a problem and come up with a better solution than using Northland Assistance Center, because it isn't the best place for things outside of cold weather, and come up with a different solution. And we actually have data to support that because they would be tracking it. Or we separate it completely, as we're mentioning now, and saying this is just for cold weather. And if and when that request comes up again, the answer needs to be no. But we are willing to take information and data and discuss other alternatives.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly at least some of my concern initially about potentially overfunding some of these, because it does get hard once you've allowed that sort of thing to then claw back or reduce it or change it in some sort of way, which is the conversation we're having now, which doesn't feel great. But if we got to figure out what the focus is here. Councilmember Alvarez.
I just want to say that I would agree with Councilman Todd's comments. I think that you can still have those situations, where you really need that extra fund. And so if we wanted to maybe keep this just strictly cold weather, we could create something else and keep them separate. But I do know that that need does arise sometimes on an emergency basis. I think it's a good program, and I think it's helped a lot of people. So I wouldn't necessarily want to just see it cut off if there was an emergency situation where it would only be considered for cold weather. So
Perfect.
maybe separate them.
Thank you. And I'll just say, try to wrap this up a little bit here, and I'll call on if everyone wants to keep going as well. But generally, I think council would support focusing on a cold weather policy and then farther addressing in the near future, having more of those conversations about what these other programs may look like. But I do think it's important tonight to definitely pass the cold weather piece of this tonight, which is why the amendment was prepared. So those are further comments to add. Councilmember Snyder.
Wanted to move to approve the amended resolution, yes?
Oh, he's got a technical here. Oh.
I just want to make
I
sure
strike that.
everyone is perfectly clear that on the one that says in red amendment, all the suggestions in red are fine, but that was an amendment of an earlier version of what's in your,
Oh.
that is what is in your packet and on the agenda, okay?
See what happens when I try to do something.
And so, as a result, I just want you to know that it will not be on the agreement, this exact agreement that is on paper, although the red changes.
This agreement
as
looks
well
good,
as
though.
the
What else
dates.
is there? What's
Pardon?
different? This agreement looks pretty good to me.
It may
What's the
look pretty
difference?
good, but in no place in the agreement on this
Uh-oh.
red one does it even say we are bound to pay $30,000. What this said
I
was.
like that. No.
This document just said, NAC approached the city to request that $30,000 be
I
allocated
got
for
you, I got
emergency
you, I
services.
got you. So that
You
is the.
have to actually commit contractually to pay $30,000.
All right, so
The one in
if we approve this motion with that
The one in
understanding,
your
okay.
agenda that went out is
Yeah,
correct.
okay, so check my wording. I'm going to say this how I think you want me to say it, and then correct me if I'm wrong. I move to approve the resolution that was attached with the amendment of changing September 30th to March 31st and striking all language of emergency housing to be replaced with cold weather emergency housing.
Second.
All right, perfect. Got it. Did the clerk get that, though? We good? We're square over here? All right. With that, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item, which is boom, 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 boom. Number 20, ordinance amending City Code 4.16.120 and repealing Chapter 4.20, employee permits, Bill number 7808, ordinance number 9605. I don't have an extended presentation for this one tonight. This is a re-up of what we discussed at the last meeting, and I believe there is no other requirements being asked of this. This is just a straight repeal of what we discussed at last meeting. Is there further discussion? Is there a motion? Councilmember Smith.
We did discuss at the last one, if we're going to repeal, to have some sort of training or something that was being suggested. Are we just advocating to add that later, or are we just going to kind of roll with the repeal?
I would still put that back on the burden of the business owner and the license and the permit holder.
And if they don't,
Then they might get their license repealed if they're acting in bad. I mean, if employees aren't doing what they're supposed to do, the penalty is removing or removing the liquor license, in which then they cannot operate at all, which seems to be a pretty hefty penalty to begin with on a business.
yeah. Yeah, I get that. And that's just not as easy as we just go in and take your permit, I don't think. We can't just like pull a liquor license because we're upset with how they were operating, or can we?
We can always increase our codes as well, but that might be something for a question for legal counsel as well. But there certainly are apparatus either through us or through the state.
There was just a robust conversation about
Yeah.
what would back this up if it goes away. And this is just a,
If we're talking about backing it up, there was no training requirement to begin with anyways. There was no training involved in this process. We didn't require any training to begin with.
right.
So that wasn't any part of what this ordinance did. But yes, we did have that conversation. But yeah, no, just on the backing it up portion, there just wasn't. We weren't requiring any training before. Councilmember Saper.
It's true it wasn't required, the training, but it was required to get a license. And part of the licensing procedure was the training.
No,
No?
never. No, it is not.
No, through the.
There was no training required is the question. I know everyone just stares. I guess we're just looking for a head nod there. There was no training requirement before, correct? Anyone that knows the ordinance, right? There was no, okay, there we go.
So
All right.
There's no training requirement
Thank you
before
for
ever.
clarifying that.
So
Yeah.
with a business liquor license, so training is part of that? Or
Yeah, I've never applied for a business liquor license. I guess I don't know. Whatever the
Chief,
requirements of the
what
state
do you
and city
know?
are now
Yes.
seem to be plenty.
Okay.
Business liquor license requirement does require the business owner to assure that their employees are getting this training.
So they have to certify that their employees are being trained. Whether they are or not, we don't know, but they're checking the box.
But we
It's
did
in the
know through this
license.
ordinance.
It's in the license application and requirement.
All right.
Councilmember Saper.
Okay, that clarifies that. Thank you. So there was a requirement, whether it was honored or in the breach, I don't know.
Not as part of this ordinance, though.
Not
Yes,
part of this
okay,
ordinance,
okay.
but there had been
There's still
in the process.
what I said. Yes. Yeah, you just don't out nose.
And I in fact, like the accountability of having the license and the trackability of that. I don't think it was a tremendous burden on the employee or the employer that it requires the change. So I'm really not in favor of this.
Thank you, Councilmember Todd.
Yes, I just want to address two things. One, to Councilmember Smith. When we talk about kind of that accountability piece about what happens if someone is out there doing things they shouldn't, right? And what we kind of clarified last time as well is that with or without this permit, if an individual is serving a minor, if an individual is over serving and something happens, that the legal ramifications of that are the same.
Right, yeah.
And that we also discussed kind of those touch points that our current police officers do with going in and making sure, you know, things are running well, that people aren't doing those kinds of things, that those touch points would still happen with or without permits. And so those kinds of things will still be in place, even without the permit. And then to Councilmember Saber's point, I do think it's a barrier. I think it's a barrier for both employee and for employer, because it is, number one, if you have been convicted of a felony, which I know sounds scary, but that can be for a number of things, I don't think that that should bar you from serving alcohol. And so I do think that that's a barrier to an employee. There also is a small fee, which to some people might seem small, but to a small business or to an employee who is looking for a job, that small fee of, I think it's like $25, right? It's not very much, but that can be a lot, especially if you're already not making ends meet. $25 can be a lot, and even if the employer reimburses that, you're waiting for the reimbursement, or if it's a new business that's just opening. And so I do want to just draw that there is a barrier, even if it seems small to you or to me, I guess I should say, not you or to me, it is a barrier that is a large barrier to some. And I think the purpose of the permit doesn't serve any difference in outcomes. So I am in favor of repealing.
Send it to me as well. All right. Further comments on this one? Seeing none, is there a motion for a first reading?
First reading.
Second.
Second. All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. No. Motion carries. Further comments? Do you have further?
With Councilmember Saper, I just want to make sure that we're kind of on the same page here. So I think what we were talking about, two different things. The business license, the business liquor license for a business is its own thing that requires or is a sign off that says you're going to have your staff trained and understanding what it's like to serve alcohol and the responsibilities included in that. That doesn't go away. This is just simply eliminating the card requirement. Okay,
All right.
just wanted to be sure.
With that, further comments? Seeing none, is there a motion?
We already got the motion. I have the motion in the second.
There we go.
An ordinance amending section 4.16.120, employment in sales by drink or package premises, and repealing chapter 4.20, employee permits of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7808 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9605.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes,
Yes.
Councilmember Todd,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
No.
Councilmember Schneider,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Yes.
An ordinance amending section 4.16.120, employment in sales by drink or package premises, and repealing chapter 4.20, employee permits of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
That title was too short. It didn't meet the mandatory minimum title. Thank you. Item number 21, application for honorary street name designation. Mike.
Right. Soon after the last meeting, we received the first application for the honorary street name designation in honor of Gus Lime Cooler. It was presented to you all a while back. Application did meet all the requirements. We received the deposit and the letter of consent from Gus's son.
Some shady business going on here.
So we brought it here as per the policy for council consideration tonight.
Perfect. Further comments? Seeing none, what do we got here? What is this? What are we doing here? A motion of some sort? Yeah, let's do it. We'll do a motion.
Move
We'll
to
make this
approve.
official.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Item number 22, ordinance calling for a general election to be held on April 2nd, 2024. Bill number 7809, ordinance number 9606.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries.
An ordinance calling for a general election to be held on April 2nd, 2024, for the purpose of electing one qualified council member from each of the city's 4 wards in the city of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that bill number 7809 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9606.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes,
Yes.
Councilmember Todd,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Yes.
An ordinance calling for a general election to be held on April 2nd, 2024, for the purpose of electing one qualified council member from each of the city's 4 wards in the city of North Kansas City, Missouri.
Beautiful. Item number 23, approving accounts due and payable by the city through November 3rd, 2023. Bill number 7810, ordinance number 9607.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, say no. Motion carries.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through November 3rd, 2023.
I move that bill number 7810 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9607.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes, Councilmember Todd,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through November 3rd, 2023.
24, staff comments.
All right, I have the items and staff comments tonight. I know Shu, Anthony, and Victoria have comments for you as well. I'm going to go ahead and add in there, there's an update on the community center. 2 of our staff, one from Public Works and one from Community Development, did a walkthrough of the community center last week, I believe, over 3 days. There is their notes are reported or included in the report for your review. I'm meeting with the Y on November 20th. And they plan on being here to December 5th, but I will have information for the 21st to provide further. But at this time, we're kind of they're working on getting some information back to the council.
Can I ask a?
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, so this, looking through the list, there's some not too small items on there that would be considered maintenance had they been maintained, and now they're fixes and repairs, which would fall to us. Do we know at all how we're handling this?
It's part of the discussion with the Y point. I've been pointing out that, some of these, now some of the things on the list, out of fairness, are city. Seals break down in windows. That's not a maintenance thing.
Right.
So we'll go through that and take responsibility for what is the city's, but also it's part of the discussion. The whole point was to be able to show that, look, there's some more accountability that needs to be taken. So yeah.
And the floor, what's the progress? Oh, okay, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't know if that was going to be
We're
part of
skipping
it.
ahead.
No, actually, yeah, I was going to came last
Jump
minute,
in on that,
but so the new floor at the Y in the basketball court area has been laid down. They were painting the lines on today, which is second to last of the final process. Some of the thresholds of the doors still need to be finalized and worked out, but it's looking really good.
Nice.
And happy with the outcome. Yeah.
Beautiful. Further staff comments, or was that the? Victoria had something though, right? Did you? You moved up closer. You look like you got something to add. No, nothing. There you go. There we go. I think you're on now.
Okay, I just wanted to invite everybody to Mistletoe Market. It's going to be November 18th and 19th at the Park Center. And then the mayor's tree lighting is coming up too. Usually we do it the Friday before Mistletoe, but it's going to be Friday, December 1st at this new location on the southwest corner of Armour and Swift. So, thank you.
Thank you. Further staff comments from Anthony's. Ready.
One other item
What do you
tonight.
got?
So the city is members of the Mid-America Regional Council's Water Quality Education Committee. Through that committee, the committee itself has undertaken a goal this year, which aligns with our strategic goals about green infrastructure. And they're going after creating a program for regional contractors to get education in installing and maintaining green infrastructure in the area. So what they've asked from the cities that participate in the program is a couple funding implementation strategies for their different levels. It's a 4-phase program. Phase 1 involves asking for the local participating communities for funding based on their population. Our funding consideration is very small. It's $150. They have reached out and asked, is there maybe more we can look at contributing? We can talk further discussions on that.
Inflation, we can go 155. That's
right. But so that's phase 1. Phase 2 through 4 involve going after a grant through the EPA, and they're looking for letters of recommendation from the cities. We've included in your packets a sample letter for being included in that program.
Here we go.
See, I mean, I want to support this. Would we just sign our name to this letter, or do we need to write these sort of?
No, we would just forward this letter as it is. I think that there's a place for the mayor to sign it.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted council support or us to write letters.
So really.
If there's kind of a nod that we can go this direction, I think it would just, come from.
Yeah, if the council were to approve such, then the mayor could send it on behalf of, the city.
Sure.
But we just wanted, before that was done, bring it forward. And,
Any opposed? How about that?
Right. And as far as the amount.
Oh, is that a hand or a wave?
No.
Oh, she's, oh. Well, that's perfect timing here. I think, no. Okay. What else we got? What else
That's
we
all
got?
I had on that.
All right, we'll move down the table here. What do we got? Community development, Shu.
All right, I'll keep it.
Oh, you actually had something on the monitor. Steven.
I do.
Steven.
So is there one item for 5 minutes? Oh, here we're back. Here we go. I have 2 items. I'll be really quick. The first one is thank you everyone who attended the the Riverfront Levee Trail public meeting this past Monday at the Y. That has been really impressive. We had over 50 people attended with a lot of good feedbacks and a very positive attitude toward it. So the next step for us is to work on the outline of the conceptual plans and bring it to the second public meeting while we're still engaging with our steering committee. And the second item we are looking at is the Howell shared use path. So as instructed by the city council, from the budgeting exercise, we prioritize this project and we combine the Howell north and south component together as one project and budgeted a total of $740,000 for both engineering cost and the construction cost. So we got an estimate for engineering costs came back much higher than what staff budgeted. We initially budgeted $80,000 for engineering design for all the construction plans, and it came back at $427,000. And at this point, we don't have an idea of the construction cost because the plan hasn't been finalized. So as of today, we still have the budget authority to move forward. Staff do recommend us to move forward with the engineering design. It doesn't get cheaper, for sure. But when the plan has been settled and we can look into the construction cost, we can either look into maybe a budget amendment or looking into maybe budgeted for the future budget years. So those might be the options, or phase it.
Or
phase
it.
Yeah, just so I understand, just the engineering came in at more than half of the total budgeted number?
No. The total budget number is $740,000.
How much was the engineering?
The engineering is at $127,000.
I thought you said 400. Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
I heard 400.
I did too. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, my bad. It was $127,000.
I thought I lost track of projects there for a minute. I thought I was on the right project, but now.
Shoo, I totally heard 127.
Oh.
I
heard 400.
Yeah, I had 4. Okay.
Wow.
Okay, glad I clarified, because I was like, I was dead in the water on that one. I was like, well, we tried. Yeah, okay.
Does that make everybody feel better?
Yeah.
See, I like that setup. She did that. See.
Yeah.
No, I did not.
Higher, but I do a much higher number.
No.
Look at this.
127.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I heard like the 40,000 maybe. Maybe we.
I heard 400.
I think
I did too.
No doubt. Okay. Thank you.
So yeah, those are the two updates.
Did we just lose our microphone? Hello?
We're there. I don't know.
Okay.
We're all glitching up here. Oh, Steven's yelling from the box and back.
Too many people talking.
Oh, yeah, only so many people. I forgot. We haven't gone over this on new people. Only so many can have their mics on at once. So if you're not talking, keep your mic off. I generally keep mine on because I talk a lot. Yeah. Further, are you done? I'm done. All right. Back to you. Anything else? Nope. Crystal, nothing? All right. We got our election ordinance passed. Just don't do that. You made the hands. Item number 25, Councilmember Alvarez. Councilmember comments.
I don't really have a lot of comments, just, again, thank you for the staff for all the work they did in presenting the development, economic development program and explaining that, because it does make a lot more sense when it's lined out like that. I do wanted to say one more thing too, the Citizens Academy gets started up again, I think that's a really good thing for people to sign up for if they're interested at all, because I think it explains a lot of this too, how the money is spent from the city. Other than that, that's it.
Councilmember Clark.
Thanks, city staff, for all the hard work, and again, Councilmember Schneider for bringing that forward for us to discuss. Long overdue. I wanted to point out previous Councilmember Fred Steffen reached out to me to let me know that he was very grateful to the water department concerning the backup water drain. He was able to call, and they showed up so quick with capes on. That's my ad. But he was very impressed with the turnaround time and felt like problems were solved. And I did see a whole host of guys out there and getting stuff done. So, yay! Pass the message. Excited for the events coming up. Also, Seminole Drive still is looking for some sort of report out for kind of the walkthrough of the erosion behind there. We're still looking for some conclusive information to kind of stew over. So that's just something, yeah, to take on. But other than that, thanks so much.
Councilmember Stokes.
I just have a shout out to the Parks and Rec Department. Every single meeting, Victoria is coming up and announcing some big event that they're hosting within the next couple of weekends. Great trunk or treat. Liz was out there peddling cookies like nobody's business, and it was really fun. My children all enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to Mistletoe Market.
Thank you, Councilmember Top.
Yep, just second that Mistletoe Market. Can't wait. I'm going to bring all my money. And yeah, Mayor's tree lighting ceremony. I've got a kid singing for you, so I'll be there.
Perfect. We don't need anything else. That's good. I always love when the kids come. There we go. Councilmember Safer.
Just a thank you for this incredible North Kansas City economic development incentive discussion piece that you presented. It's on YouTube now as part of the council meeting, but it should be separated out and made available widely. Thank you.
I want to say the levee trail, where you put the dots on everything, that was so well organized and well run. I thought that has a lot of information and looked like a lot of people were going through there. Also, I just wanted to say thank you to Shu and Mike and Kim and the mayor, who all met multiple times to get ready for this discussion of the economic development. There's a lot of work behind the scenes that went into that, so I appreciate all of you for doing that. And thank you, Chief Hargis, for giving us the background on the emergency cold weather housing. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith.
Big kudos to the Parks Department for the Halloween trunk or treat, especially since it was nasty outside. Thanks for giving the kids a way to come inside and enjoy some treats and some tricks. Special thanks to, I believe it was Raggedy Liz, was it? For handing out all the stuff. Very good. And if you haven't yet, consider getting your flu and COVID shots. It's going around. And as Travis Kelce says, you can do two things at once. Yes, that too.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
I think as part of going last, I have nothing else to add to what's been said already.
See what I mean? It's real easy when you get to the end here. I got nothing else to add, so we will go on. I mean, I could talk for days, but we'll go to 27 anyways. Consideration of a request to hold in recess in an executive session as requested by the mayor to be held on this date on a potential litigation matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610-0211.
Move to approve.
Moved.
Call
Second.
the roll, please.
Second.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes.
Yes.
Councilmember Todd,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Number 28, consideration of request to hold and recess an executive session is requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610-0212.
So moved.
Second, Councilmember Stokes. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes, Councilmember Todd,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Yes.
And number 29, consideration of request to hold and recess in an executive session as requested by the city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statute 610-0212.
So moved.
Second, Councilmember Stokes. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Alvarez,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Stokes, Councilmember Todd,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper.
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Fitzgerald.
All right, with that, the live feed and Channel 2 will cut off shortly. There will be no further public business or votes taken this evening. Thank you.